This is Coda Radio, episode 495 for December 5th, 2022. Hey, good buddy, welcome back to Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and the world of technology. My name is Chris, and I hope, avoiding the plague, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. How are you? Are you healthy?
To Kubma be praised, I'm fine.
I think I'm skirting the edge of it. I can feel it in my sinuses, you know? And I got one of three that had a fever the other day. And I can feel it creeping in, Mike. I can feel it coming after me. And it already robbed me of some of my Thanksgiving. I tell you what, it's a winter. It is a winter of winters here in the Pacific Northwest. It has hit hard. It's like probably about 29 degrees Fahrenheit outside right now, which is cold for us when the sun's up in the morning. That's pretty cold for the Seattle area. So I think it's just going around. Although I can't really complain because at least I didn't try to buy Twitter for probably more than double what it's worth and then try to turn it around into some sort of profitable company while the entire world freaks out as I make every single move. And then, of course, I can't help myself but go on Twitter and then exaggerate situations and make big claims to make things into bigger deals than they really are. Apple was going to remove Twitter from the iPhone. So it turns out, now the story is, Apple actually was never going to remove Twitter from the iOS App Store. That was Elon's misunderstanding. Big oops. Oh, and by the way, Apple has restored advertising in full on the Twitter platform. So did Elon lie?
Well, what is a lie if you believe it, right? But it's... I actually have some sympathy for Elon on this one. This is a move I could see myself doing, right? You get like a weird cryptic message, which is basically... If you've ever dealt with app review, they never tell you exactly what they want because you might use that later and send it to the media, right? Basically. So they say, here's an app store guideline, insert vague 3.1 point whatever, for example. And basically every time you ask them what's up, they're just going to keep referring you to that very vague text. And, certain people, certain personality types tend to overreact. And I certainly have done this with App Review, and I feel like Elon definitely has. Now, this is where I'm a little negative on Elon. There's no way he didn't know about the 30% cut before. Yet he claimed to be shocked by the secret tax. I mean, come on, dude. Come on, bro, right? You know about it. You're in the tech space. Everybody knows about it. The Epic trial is already in the Court of Appeals now. And
but I think you could argue end users don't necessarily know about it. Average, everyday.
Right, but he's not an end user, right? He's in the field. He should know.
But was he saying it was a secret tax because he was surprised by it, or was he saying this is something you guys don't know about? I don't know. You could read that either way. I read it as people don't realize that Apple has this tax. People outside the development community don't realize.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. I mean, what's really more interesting to me is less how Elon handled it, because it's not super surprising. It's more how it looked like Apple was going to come out pretty hard and just like slap him down. And you can't make this up, only in Florida. Ron DeSantis goes on TV.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think, Ted Cruz as well. And all of a sudden, they're talking about regulation for Apple in the App Store. And all of a sudden, we're having a little stroll around the pond at Apple Park.
Yeah.
It's like,
2 days later, we're visiting Tim Cook and sharing a shadow selfie.
Right. And all of a sudden, it was a misunderstanding. Elon, sorry, overreacted, whatever. And Apple's advertising on Twitter again. So that kind of shows you what Apple's real priorities are. And anybody who's listening to the show knows that I've been railing against some of the more, how could we say, despotic policies that Apple has about the App Store. And yeah, I mean, they make a ton of money on it, right? So they don't.
And I think it just lays bare that, if you can go for a little pond walk with Uncle Tim, you're good to go.
He's a charming man, Chris. Big football fan. You and I would love to go on a pond walk with Uncle Tim.
Oh, I totally would go on a pond walk. I'm wondering too, Old Uncle Tim is really secretive. And I wonder when Elon arrives, because of the competitive nature there is with Tesla and them, especially when it comes to stealing engineers, but also, he talked about building his own phone. Does Uncle Tim meet Elon outside in the foyer and they walk the pond and never even go to Tim's office? I'm thinking he never goes into Tim's office, and that it's like a security thing. But they don't even tell Elon that's it. They're just like, yeah, meet Tim outside. He'll be here. So then you have the guy who works for the world's richest company meeting the richest man, and they're like quasi-competitors. But Elon is clearly, totally, wholly dependent on Apple and Google's App Store access for the Twitter platform.
Not just Elon.
The web would not survive. The company would not survive, which is the web, right? So it's this incredibly awkward dynamics. And to Tim Cook's credit, I'm guessing it was Tim who was the adult in that situation and appropriately navigated the conversation.
So? Of course. I mean, Mr. Footlong Doobie versus Tim Cook. Yeah. Well, okay. There's so much to unpack here. Number one, I feel like this story is more funny than important because Tim Cook also averted a trade war with the United States, i.e. in the person of Donald Trump, and probably the most powerful man in the world, Xi Jinping. So there's that. He actively has somehow managed to avoid App Store regulation while being on the stand in federal court. And you guys should look this up. Again, read the transcripts. It's great. And same for SBF. Tim Cook says, well, the judge asked, well, doesn't it seem like, the likes of these game developers are subsidizing the likes of Wells Fargo? Well, why do you do it that way? And basically said, well, that's our business model. We got to capitalize on our IP. I'm paraphrasing. But Tim Cook is not lying, right? He's not hiding the ball. I don't really understand what Elon thought was going to happen here, although I guess getting Apple, one of their most important advertisers, back.
That's a brand win for the platform in terms of legitimate advertisers.
I mean, they need every shekel they can get at this point. It's not even just optics, right?
Right, and they're a big advertiser.
Right.
So it's a cachet brand, and they're going to do a pretty decent spend, you would imagine.
I don't know. He's definitely a genius. I'm a big fan. But I'm starting to question is it all 3D chess?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you got it.
Does he just get loaded and get pissed off, right?
This is the interesting thing we're watching, is you have the full, like what you have here is the most vocal people on Twitter are really critical and everything's a mistake and he's kind of bumbling into one situation. And then you have the full Elon Stan side of the spectrum where you could argue this entire overreaction was to get a firm commitment on Apple so that way he could proceed forward without any ambiguity if Apple was going to screw Twitter or not, because that sort of ends the game right there. And so either way, if it was intentional or not, he's actually secured himself a bit of assurance, and so they can proceed without that devastating threat constantly looming over them. Either way, it works out pretty well, but I think the stands would say that it was all planned and that this was all a ploy to get to Uncle Tim, and I think the critics would say he freaked out and he panicked, and he just got lucky and fell into a meeting with Tim Cook, and then fell into a walk around the pond where they fell into a solution for everything and solved it.
See, I don't think he got lucky, right? I don't know. I feel like Ron DeSantis was more important in this story than Elon Musk. In that, I'm sure if you're Apple and you're Tim Cook, you have a table of people who are like, so what happens if the Republicans take over again and we keep pissing them off with all of our liberal stuff and the fact that we control the App Store, which we want to maintain control of, right? He has to try to appear even-handed.
Yeah, you're right. So this is Uncle Tim taking advantage of Elon being brash and playing some 3D chess and giving the right a demonstration of his even-handedness.
Well, Uncle Tim's got an election coming up in 2024 that if it goes what I'm sure Apple would perceive as the wrong way, right? Not that they love some of the more lefty people who also want to regulate them. Like they're in a bad spot, right? They get screwed either way. You have Amy Klobuchar on the left who correctly wants to regulate them. You have the Republicans who correctly see that they have, they're an opinionated corporation and their opinions definitely contradict the conservative point of view. I don't know. I feel like Uncle Tim is actually the star of this show. He's our dude doing Cirque du Soleil, and I've seen 3 versions of Cirque du Soleil. I've seen O, Mystere, and the less good Beatles one. And you know what? Those guys are awesome. Very talented. You should go see it. Mirage in Las Vegas. Will you pay us now? Steve Wynn, are you going to pay me now? Oh, sorry.
I think the common Apple click criticism of Tim Cook is that, oh, he's just a supply chain guy.
Bull. He's a diplomat. That guy, you know what? He's Sarek. He walked in, basically. Can you imagine if let's just grow a mustache and go to the alternate universe here? If Tim Cook came out and said, "You know what, Elon? I've had enough of your crap. You support, the word the people who are in opposition would say fascist stuff, and I'm just banning Twitter tomorrow." Right? Like done overnight. There would be all of a sudden those conservatives who kind of don't believe in regulation and love big business, who have slowed down the Amy Klobuchars of the world, would be after him, right? You would have a bipartisan bill completely rewriting how software is distributed, and most importantly, hitting that 30% cut.
Well, and as long as we're just kind of nailing this point home and saying he's more than just a supply chain guy, I mean, he basically made peace with the Romulans and the Klingons while they were both at war with Cardassians, and he's getting his phones manufactured on Cardassian Prime. Like, he dealt with Trump in a way that was slightly embarrassing to him, to buy like the most vocal.
But personally, yeah.
He did it in a way that I think a lot of the Silicon Valley, California CEOs just couldn't bring themselves to do, right? But Tim, he swallowed it, and he just sat there at those tables, and he said the things that Trump needed him to say for Tim Apple to say.
He thought his name was Tim Apple.
And he got his deals, right? And he got his carve-outs with the China policies and whatnot. And he's done the same exact maneuvering with the Biden administration. They're not as boisterous about it, but I think there was like some leaked document from the Trump administration of a conversation with one of Trump's kids and Trump, and they were talking about how Tim Apple's one of the more powerful men in America because of the size of Apple and his ability to negotiate. I don't know. There's something to it.
Well, he's also doing actual stuff, right? Like, he is very aware of the problems that he has in China. So he's moving production to places such as, the US now, right? Which is a carrot for the more conservative and the more classic, kind of like blue dog Democrat folks. And for our non-US friends, he's spreading the wealth. He complies with all the European regulations. In fact, he basically doesn't fight them unless, of course, you go after that sweet services revenue.
Tim Cook owns some Bitcoin.
I bet he owns everything, right?
I would too, I suppose, if I was as rich as he.
He's probably got like a vault full of emeralds and sapphires somewhere. I mean,
should we get to some tech stuff? Spend some of Jordan's money. So Jordan is a developer. He's currently running Pop OS, and he loves it, but he's been running on an Alienware desktop, and it's kind of falling apart. So he's considering a System 76 Gazelle or an M1 MacBook Pro. He hasn't used the Mac very much, but his coworkers let him borrow an extra Mac, and he's making it work. He thinks he could make it work full time if he needed to. Most of the development he does is Python. It's a little fast API action with some front end development using TypeScript.
Great choices.
He doesn't currently do any iOS development, and he doesn't know if he will anytime soon. So his question is it worth the switch to the Mac for that type of workflow for development, or would the Gazelle work better than the Alienware for him? Are there things that the Mac does that you feel like you're missing out on when you're using Pop? He's asking you specifically.
Both of those are decent machines. I would say he said which Mac? The M1 Air?
I think he said Pro, actually, the M1 MacBook Pro.
There's kind of the obvious stuff out of the way. The build quality on the Macs is top shelf. In particular, now I do not have this version Gazelle. I have a older one, but I'm told it's very much the same. The onboard speakers are not great. I found the Dev ones actually to be better. So if you listen to a lot of like videos or podcasts while you're working and you don't wear headphones, that's something to consider. The downside with the Mac is you're going to be spending quite a bit more money in most cases to get a similar spec machine. I have a couple hundred. It's up to you. If you think you might do iOS development, then there's an obvious advantage to the Mac. If you, on the flip side, like one of the things I like when I'm doing my Python and Ruby work on the Dev 1 is that it's I know they don't like it when you say this, but it's effectively Ubuntu, right? And the majority, except for the proud OpenSUSE servers or SUSE Enterprise servers in Plant City, of my virtual instances are Ubuntu. So there's a nicety to the commands being exactly the same, right? That's and Mac, you get some weird stuff with Homebrew. It's a tough choice. They're both good machines. I mean, the other thing is glossy screen versus matte screen. I believe the Gazelle is matte. I always confuse the Gazelle and the Lemur. I would say you'll probably be happy with either. I don't really miss much other than the iOS development toolchain for when I'm not on the Mac.
And that's not something he's necessarily going to need.
I would actually throw another contender in here, though, with an asterisk. If you're considering going pop, consider the Dev 1. The only thing I've had that I don't like on the Dev 1 is the screen does wash out in light pretty quickly, and it's glossy. I would have preferred that it be matte. But the Dev 1 versus at least the Gazelle that I had, I would go Dev 1. Again, that speaker thing is very important to me.
Oh, yes. The Dev 1 does have pretty good speakers.
Yeah. And I can do video calling without having to put headphones on the Dev 1, which I have struggled with other System 76 laptops with. I mean, I wouldn't turn you away from the Mac, though. You know, if money is no object and you even have an inkling that you want to do an iOS app at someday, I'd get basically a decently spec'd Mac. I'd probably definitely stay above 16 or minimum 16 gigs. Yeah, I switch between them now every couple of days, and I will say that the macOS GUI feels slower than GNOME. So there's that.
I think here's a couple of things you could optimize for, and depending on which one's more important, you pick. The advantage of the Lemur or the Dev 1 would be that you have the option to dual boot into Windows, and you can virtualize x86 Windows. If that ever is something you might want, I think that probably that might make your decision right there. If battery life, if you don't need Windows, or for some reason somehow Windows ARM would suffice, and you want to optimize for battery life and portability, then I'd say probably the MacBook. And I think if you kind of look at those two different perspectives, you could probably fill in the rest from there.
Yeah, I would actually take that a step further. If you need x86 Windows at all, you got to go with not the Mac. Because I've tried. Parallels sells a solution. Is it Parallels? Yeah, I think it's Parallels. It's not great.
Parallels, I believe, I could be wrong. I believe Parallels will do Windows ARM, and VMware will now do Windows x86.
It's VMware. Okay. Because I have both. It's not ideal. It's not even close to being good. So.
Linode.com/coder. Go there to get $100 in 60-day credit on a new account, and it's a great way to support the show while you're checking out fast, reliable cloud hosting over at Linode. They've built some of the very best in the business. I've looked at some of the alternatives out there, and maybe in the very short term, I could save a couple of bucks, or I don't know, like maybe some system might be slightly faster for the monthly price I'm paying. But I look at it on like a 5-year window. Like, I want these systems to be viable for 5 years when I build them. And I want to just set them up, keep them maintained, and trust that Linode will keep them running. And I can do that with Linode because they've been around for nearly 19 years. And the company has survived on the merits of the product. It's a good product. And that's why they keep coming back to Coder Radio and advertising, because our listeners are trying it out and they're loving it. It's a really great match. It is a perfect platform to do development testing, to do some exploring, just kind of learn. Push things a little bit before you throw them into production. And then when you're ready to put things in production, Linode has the infrastructure to do it. 40 gigabit connections coming to the hypervisors, NVMe hard drives available, AMD EPYC processors if you want to go all the way in, 30 to 50% cheaper than the hyperscalers that don't even offer you real human support without going through a seemingly torture test to get there. And on top of all of that, you have 11 data centers to choose from, and they're adding another dozen over the next year. And they have great features like object storage, cloud firewall, so the traffic never even makes it to your rig, backups that are easy to understand, easy to kick off, easy to restore. You know right where you're at before you make any big changes. And if you're lucky enough to have some serious infrastructure management tooling, Linode will snap right into that as well. There's a lot there. I mean, I could just go on and on. So why not take that $100 and go see what works for you? Go build something. Go learn something, try it for yourself, and support the show. Linode's what we use. I think you're going to love it. Linode.com/coder. I found this story a little hard to read, I have to tell you. The overall kind of feeling I got from this is that AWS staff were throwing shade at Microsoft for underfunding .NET. This comes from AWS's software development manager. Quote, "We found that .NET open source is heavily underfunded." They go on to say, "The sad thing about .NET open source is that we can still call it a third-party open source. That should not be the case." Firing some shots here, Mr. Dominic. Like, they're coming in swinging. This is at reInvent. And several other Amazon staff and executives had comments about the state of .NET. And they were kind of boisterous about the fact that they're kind of becoming a big .NET platform. In fact, I think .NET is, I think I grabbed the number here. They write, quote, "Right now, .NET is the third most popular platform behind Python and Java for app development at AWS." So this, to me, when I read this register piece, and we'll have it linked in the notes, I felt like AWS just came into the room and started throwing their weight around because they looked at their stats and they saw it was a number 3 platform and they realized it's not doing everything they need and they want to take it further so they can sell more stuff. And now the big dog's in the room and he's going to tell people how it should be done. I don't know. This really rubbed me the wrong way.
I felt exactly the same way. In fact, I was thinking back to years ago when AWS just mercilessly capitalized on Docker and, basically Docker and Kubernetes, right?
Under the guise of it needs to be improved for the customers. It's not good enough. It's underfunded. It was the same kind of stuff.
But at the expense of the company at the time called Cloud9, now then called Docker, who made Docker. Yeah, this is like, okay, they want to, yeah, I don't think this is great.
You've got to figure there's some execs at Microsoft and some staff that are just fuming over this, right?
There's a couple folks in the Azure department who are like, oh, you, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're, direct competitors.
Yeah, I know. They also take shots at the Active Directory support and talk about how they're doing work to make Active Directory better.
Okay, first of all, if you ever used Active Directory, AWS guys, everybody is suffering. It's Active Directory. Next, you're going to say SharePoint. I mean, just get a rest.
They say a project that we've been working on this year is AD connectivity from Linux containers. When customers start modernizing, they told us that it's hard to get away from AD because AD connects to all of their organization. So, they're going to come in here and they're going to start porting stuff over to Linux, they say, because this is what's got to get done. So they're going to have a daemon that runs on your Linux instance that enables this sort of like translation from some sort of Linux container properties to Active Directory. And I mean, it's neat. And it's fine, especially if it's going to be all open source and appropriately licensed. But it feels like the beginning of a trend that is it's probably not going to end in a good place.
I think nothing is going to happen. You think that really? What do you think Microsoft is going to do? Okay, our dear competitor, let us help you make money off of our software, taking customers away from our platform, which is already in the distant second from you.
What happens when two Godzillas fight? Your nice apartment gets wrecked. They destroy your building. That's what I'm thinking. It's like when two monsters fight.
Well, you shouldn't have lived in Tokyo.
But dude, I'm living right in Microsoft's backyard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. AWS, lovely people work there, I'm sure, but I just can't get over how merciless they were with the Docker and the containerization stuff.
Yeah.
And how many reports did we get from the more FOSS, freedom beards about how AWS would basically just like capitalize on all this open source, and maybe every once in a while they hire somebody and then they make a big deal out of it, right? And send him or her on the podcast round. It's like, come on, you guys, you're fine. Spend some money.
Well, and I know these aren't like necessarily official public positions of Amazon Inc. or whatever, or Bezos Incorporated, but it's funny because it reads as, I think at the root of it, it reads as ungrateful because Microsoft built this house, right? And all of a sudden Amazon is starting to make money off of people living and coming and going from this house, right? Like all of a sudden, like Amazon's making money and now they want the house to be a lot nicer and they want to have control over like all of the different aspects of the house, the doors, the locks, and they're not really happy with the people who built the place. And it just feels like they should be more thankful and be grateful that the house was built in the first place and that it has a roof and it has plumbing and it has customers already. Like, it just felt like there was no gratitude. It was all criticism. And that aside, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on .NET becoming the number 3 platform. I guess I'd never really thought about it, but that does feel like a big milestone when you consider Azure. I'm sure it's a much even larger. It must be number 2. I don't know. I wouldn't presume it's number 1, but it must be in the high 1, 2, or 3s on Azure as well. That's 2 of the big 3 cloud providers. We don't know what it is on Google Cloud, but I find this to be really an interesting trend as well.
I mean, if you think about it, it's not surprising, right? How much of the dark matter devs are working in large enterprises doing .NET. I mean, there are still companies. It might be hard for those of us in the super uber nerdy world to think about, but that are still migrating to the idea of using cloud servers, right? So I'm sure there's still lots of like ASP applications out there that have yet to make the switch, and if they do, they should use that Linode code.
Well, I feel like we should get a little Pedantic about Pydantic here in the show.
Yeah, Pydantic. I like Pydantic. It's, I want to say built in. That's not exactly correct. Into Fast API. It's basically the never-ending quest to make not statically typed languages a bit more static, because that's the way it goes. Really good for keeping your code clean, and it does speed up development. I have some feelings on it. If you try to add it to legacy projects, I don't generally think that's a good idea because it's just hard. But if you're starting greenfield, in particular with something like Fast API, it's pretty cool. Well, in true Python fashion, they're doing a major version upgrade. And because it's Python, they are breaking compatibility. Because that's how Python rolls. Yeah.
Why did I feel like there was a big but coming? That whole time I was like, something's going to happen. There's a but here. How bad is this?
I don't know that it's bad, right? The product's got some great people behind it. I don't see anything wrong. I find the cavalierness with breaking compatibility somewhat jarring, and I'm concerned that it's going to be a situation where if you're on Pydantic 1, you're just going to be there forever, and then you won't use Pydantic 2 until you start a new project. This is like a much smaller example of the Python 2, Python 3, but again, much smaller than that, right? But same idea. But they have some reasons. Number 1, this one's for all you crabs. Pydantic core, which is the separate package that is the core, that's why they call it core, of this, is written in Rust. Clap your claws, my friends. Clap your claws.
Clap your claws, that's great. Clack, 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 clack.
Crab people, another victory. There you go. It's, you guys are just rolling through everybody. Now the snake bows to the crab. Using a library I've used called Pyo3. I don't actually know if you're supposed to pronounce the O because I've only used it, never talked about it, which is simply Rust bindings to Python. Great. It's for interop. Something I like, and I think should have been in the first one, which is why and this is one of what they say is a major breaking feature. It comes with a quote unquote strict mode. Now, if you've been living in Java land or C# land or any kind of strongly typed static language, you have integers, you have your types, right? You have doubles, ints, floats, whatever. Pydantic, even though it was supposed to enforce types, didn't completely. So it would allow things like the string, the example they gave was the string 1, 2, 3 to an int field. It would just be like, well, I'm Python, I'll just like make that a number now. Right, cool. Not anymore, which is a good thing, and I would argue how it should work, and I don't even think this should be a mode. I think it should be the default and only way to do this, or at least the default. But I digress. It sounds silly, but this is in the kind of dumb error that not being statically typed, you hit all the time. So when am I going to use it? Probably 2 to 3 years from now.
Okay, wait, why is that? Why?
Because it's a breaking change.
Yeah, and it's just going to be something brand new that you're just starting.
It's not something I could bill someone. Well, I guess I could bill them for, but I tend not to bill people for things that are like me upgrading tooling of my own, right? Because that seems kind of crappy. Alice is way too big to even think about making any change right now.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to adopt it. I have a feeling what's going to happen is I'm going to adopt it when Fast API or SQL Model, which is a very nice layer above SQL Alchemy written by the guy who wrote Fast API, adopts it because it also uses Pydantic, and I have a Greenfield project. So I actually do recommend it, despite maybe the slight skepticism in my voice. I'm just not sure. So I'll make their argument for them. The reason the core is in Rust is for performance, right? And because I'm a little cynic, I think it's because Rust is the new hotness too, right? So the breaking change, I think, is possibly necessary, but I do worry that it's going to create the situation where Pydantic 1 kind of just lingers like a congressman who can barely get up and wipe his own butt, but he just keeps getting reelected. What was I talking about?
No, I can see what you're saying because of users like yourself. Yeah.
Because I'm never going to take the time to do this. I mean, I think about like just for Alice, for example. Well, I could just like, in fact, secret, we're working on a GUI for Alice now, right? So why would I spend any hours that could be furthering that, which is going to be sellable, right, licensable to customers? Why would I not work on that? Why would I work on upgrading my internal tooling when that doesn't do anything for me or anything tangible that helps me sell more?
So what I kind of hear you saying is like, okay, it looks impressive, but it sounds like the thing that you are concerned about is this breaking change and perhaps the willingness to engage in a change that is breaking like this and not find some sort of smoother transition. Do you think that bothers you because you're worried it could happen again and again?
But it keeps happening, right? But it's so the irony though is I actually think these changes are good. My quibble is more if you're gonna do this, go all the way. So like my biggest like ding on this and something I would like just meekly suggest to the maintainers, you obviously see the value in the strict mode. I see the obvious value in the strict mode. I think you just need to have the opinion that strict mode is the default, at least, right? Make there be a flag where you can turn it off. But I guess my point being, if they're going to do the breaking change, then go all the way. Having said that, when I use this, I'm just going to turn strict mode on all the time, right? So fine. I wish I could have it now without it being breaking, but that strict mode is almost certainly one of the reasons it is breaking. It's also the most attractive feature to me. And yes, like every good king crab, I'm pleased with the Rust part of it. Click, click.
Tailscale.com/coder. Go there to get a free personal account for up to 20 devices. And it's a great way to support the show while you're checking out a zero config, get up and running mesh network VPN, protected and powered by WireGuard. You can quickly and easily create a secure network between your servers, your devices like your phones, your iPad, your Android tablet, if they even make those, your cloud boxes, your VMs. I found that to be super, super useful. And Tailscale software is intelligent about navigating firewall rules and double NAT and traversing even carrier-grade NAT. I can attest to that. And there's so many neat features inside Tailscale. So the basic premise is you get your own private flat network. Each device has an IP. You can also use DNS if that's your preferred style. And then there's features on top of that that make the Tailscale system even more convenient, like Tailscale Send, essentially like AirDrop for all of your devices on the Tailscale network. There's Tailscale SSH, which allows you to establish SSH connections between your different boxes over the Tailscale network. And then they've introduced a new feature recently called Tailscale Funnel. So if you say, I don't know, you run a web server on like a local host on port 8080 or whatever it might be. You just have something on your LAN. Maybe it's something you want to make available to yourself, friends, family, but it only exists on your Tailscale network. Like my Nextcloud instance is a great example of this. I now run Nextcloud only on my Tailscale network. And that's why when they introduced this funnel option, I really love this idea because I got the web server, like the Nextcloud web server or whatever, running on my box, listening on my Tailscale network. Now with the funnel feature, which is an alpha right now, it's not generally available, but they're rolling it out. They will put that box on the internet with a public IP, DNS, TLS cert, support HTTPS, all that. and then they funnel it back to your machine for when you need it. Now, this isn't something you're going to use all the time, right? But this is great for those moments, like for Nextcloud, for example, or some dashboard you want to open up. So to have a funnel and to do that it's so powerful with Tailscale. Every couple of weeks, I figure out a new way to leverage Tailscale, and it's one of those, oh, I'm never going to do this any other way again. This is so much better than what I was doing. It starts really simple with a flat mesh network, but that's the foundation for tooling where you can do some incredible stuff. And I'm just going deeper and deeper and loving it. And I know you will too. So go try it out and support the show. Tailscale.com/coder. So Coinbase had to remove NFTs from the Coinbase Wallet app on iOS. They write, you might have noticed that you can't send NFTs on the Coinbase iOS wallet anymore. This is because Apple blocked our last app release until we disabled the feature. Because Apple argues that they should get a cut of the gas fees. When you send something on Ethereum, there's something called the gas fee, which is like an homogenization of the different activity on the Ethereum network and comes up with a cost for that particular transaction. Because you could think of it as like buying time on a computer. It's a big old worldwide piece of crap computer. And that gas fee is deducted in ETH. It is part of the internal ecosystem to Ethereum. It's not like something you pay as a separate line item on an in-app purchase. But apparently Apple's app review doesn't understand that. And here's the ramifications. It means that iPhone users that own monkey JPEGs, if you hold that NFT, if you hold an NFT on your Coinbase iPhone wallet, Apple just made it basically impossible for you to move it out of there. So it's stuck there. You can't transfer it out. You can't sell it. You can't move it to another wallet. It's just stuck in your Coinbase wallet that now doesn't have any functionality to send it around. Isn't this outrageous? And an example, I think, of how, even though I think monkey JPEGs are silly, I think it's an example of how the App Store and its policies are going to shape technology platforms in the future.
Yeah, Apple hasn't seen a transaction they didn't want 30% of ever, right?
Yeah, but they're not taking a fee inside Uber. Like it's unusual for these closed ecosystems for that to happen, because it's not like that's a separate transaction going through Apple Pay. It's all kind of internal to, like, it's kind of like game tokens in a way, right? It's quite a similar.
Well, but Apple, right? So this is how they always make their distinction. If it's digital, they get a cut. I'm not saying this is right. I'm saying this is their policy.
I mean, hey, man, I know it. It's awful.
If it's physical, like you ordering a burrito from Chipotle via Uber Eats or a car from the airport from Uber, they have nothing to do with that. They just whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a somewhat arbitrary distinction, but I mean, also don't buy JPEGs.
Yeah.
Of monkeys or any other mammals or reptiles.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is kind of the ultimate, like, well, that's what you get. I just didn't, I've had so much schadenfreude with this whole crypto crash recently. I just didn't want to hit that too hard, because the whole thing has been glorious for me to watch.
My son, would you like to make a confession? Because you can go on after Sam Bankman-Fried on Good Morning America.
I think, in a big way, this needed to happen as far as the cryptocurrency stuff goes. We needed this stuff to get flushed out. We needed the SBFs to get sniffed out, and all these stupid NFTs and all of that. It was all peak easy money. It was peak broken fiat easy money. I think in a lot of ways, this bear market so far has been really healthy from like a financial restoration standpoint and, corporate like accountability standpoint. I don't know if we're about to enter into a period of time perhaps where it gets rough for the people. I don't know. The benefits may be about to run out, but we shall see. I'll just be happy if I can watch SBF squirm, that'll keep me satisfied. I can't believe he's still out there on this apology tour.
I can't believe he's going on TV.
You think it's all a mistake?
Yeah, what do you mean? Of course it's a mistake. Have you ever met a lawyer? I mean,
Yeah. The thing is, I just don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second.
Oh no, he's so obviously full of
Until this crash, his whole public image was he was a super genius, an architect of everything going on around him.
That he was the responsible. He was the responsible crypto bro.
and that he was such a hard worker because he was such a hard worker. He slept on a beanbag under his desk because he was keeping an eye on everything 12, 16 hours a day. That was his image beforehand. Then it's a crash, and all of a sudden it's, oh, I didn't know what was going on. I was really kind of unfocused for a month. I had no idea what people were doing. It was really kind of a bad month, but I'm sorry because it was my responsibility. And he's clearly gotten the signal that he was being compared to Bernie Madoff.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want that comparison because it means fraud. And he's with his PR team. He has a PR team that he has hired using the customer funds that he stole. And they are helping him manage this image of a babe in the woods who just got a little in over his head. And it was easy to mix up numbers because they're big numbers. And I'm really sorry. And I want to do everything I can to help. Please, won't you forgive me? The reason why I know it's BS, and I would bet serious stakes on it, like actual stakes, because I'm just getting a cow. It's great. So I got plenty of meat. Anyways, the reason why I know for sure it's BS is because this is the exact strategy and skill set he deployed to get to where he was to begin with. The man is a psychopath, and he knows exactly what words to say to manipulate people.
The shibboleths.
Right, exactly. And he's doing it again, only he's now playing the best hand he has. These are now the words he has to use. And there's a real benefit because it takes heat off of the politicians that he paid off. It takes heat off of them because this wasn't a big criminal mastermind. This was a kid who made a mistake. And he was just giving money for COVID. Guys, it was just COVID money. It was just millions and millions of dark COVID money. Anyways, he can now say they can take a step back. They can play their role. They can be critical and say their tough politician things. And he can pretend like it was all an accident. And most importantly, the media that got it wrong, like the New York Times, like Forbes, like CNBC, like all of them, we've probably all seen the montages going around on social media where they all just fawn over him. They don't have to take an L if it was all just a big accident. Like if everything was going good until about a month ago and it all just fell apart because he lost focus, they don't take an L. If he was a big fraud, then the money he paid to Vox and the money he paid to NPR and the money he paid to all the other different institutions, all of a sudden that starts looking like hush money. It starts looking like maybe they came knocking, they came looking because of the obvious, and he paid them off, if it's fraud. But if it's just, he was a generous billionaire that got in over his head, then the media's off the hook. So the politicians are off the hook, the media's off the hook, and Sam doesn't get nailed for fraud. He gets nailed for some kind of mismanagement mistake, some sort of clearly bad thing, but he's not the next Bernie Madoff. And that's why he's going on Twitter Spaces. That's why he's going on Good Morning America. That's why he's doing all these interviews. That's why he's tweeting, because he's being advised by a team. And he did have lawyers that told him, stop doing this. Shut up. What are you doing? Stop effing tweeting right now, the lawyer said to him. And Sam fired him.
Yeah, don't DM a reporter saying you were lying the whole time. It was just an act. I mean, come on.
And they fired that lawyer, and his dad's law team took over. They got him a PR team. All of this is out there, and this is what he's doing now. And it's working because the media needs the out, the politicians need the out, Sam needs the out. All the incentives align. The only incentives that aren't aligned are the people that got screwed, the bag holders, the retail.
Is it working though? I mean, I guess I'm not as much of a cynic as you yet. I just feel like it's so obvious. This is like when my 6-year-old does something stupid and, it very much, I didn't mean to, whatever. Well, you still did it, right? I mean, there has to be some federal prosecutor somewhere, probably in the Southern District of New York, who wants to take this guy out, right? Like, in terms of a legal case.
You got to wonder if the law doesn't get him, somebody else might.
Any Saudi money there, my friend?
But, this stuff takes a little while. The difference, like Bernie Madoff is the big comparison. And the difference with Madoff is he confessed to his son or something like that. So he confessed to fraud.
So the story is he confessed to, this is the alleged story. He confessed to his children and instructed them to turn him in because he did not want them charged. Right? So the idea is if they blow the whistle on their dad, the prosecutors would ignore any part.
That's clever.
That is clever.
That's a nice thing for a dad to do.
Well, because he was going to get he knew he was going to get caught anyway.
I'll try to make that exit, you know? That's what I'll do for my kids when I get caught in my financial scheme.
No. We just start talking about democratizing media.
Yeah, you're right.
We're gonna do green sats. I have some shibboleths for you. And first thing we do is we DM some reporters at The Verge and tell them that we're lying the whole time. Just continue to tell them that. The only thing is we have to get, all the wives and kids and everybody, we have to live in one big house. I'm thinking the Isle of Man, but we can talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I mean, Bahamas looks nice. I've been seeing a lot of pictures recently, I just got to say.
Well, and apparently very friendly government there.
Yeah, what a wild thing, huh?
I hope you're wrong, right? Because if you're right, then
I'm not. No, I'm right.
So you're just all right. Somebody, Coder mascot, this is your moment. December 5th, he makes the prediction that. So you're saying he just walks away? No. So does he go to jail?
No, I think there'll probably be some financial crime. It's just I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as it should be. But they'll get him. I'm sure that must happen. God, I hope. Otherwise, I'm really going to lose faith in everything.
I think this is just going to end up being federal prison. Okay, so all right, so you don't. I mean, he's going to go to a camp, right? It's not going to be like, it's not going to be like like John Gotti, but
that's my thinking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't even know about anybody else. I mean, it's hard to say about Caroline. She's really managed to hide. I think the rumor is that she took off in Sam's plane to Dubai. He let her take his plane to Dubai, and that's where she escaped to. Yeah, because there was a flight. Sam's plane left a couple days after the news broke. Sam's plane left the Bahamas and landed in Dubai, but Sam's still in the Bahamas and Caroline's gone. So who knows? And she was the acting CEO of Alameda and also Sam's girlfriend. So
the whole thing is, I don't know. This story, I mean, when I need to cheer myself up after a long day, I actually just read his financial statement. It's quite funny.
I love watching all these crap tokens crash and burn. Like FTT was a totally made up token. He took people's real money and he gave them fake tokens, and then he went and bought things like politicians with them.
And cars. And houses.
And he could just pump and create as many tokens as he wants. They could they basically launched the token at $22. They artificially launched it at $22. They pre-mined themselves. Like the whole thing it's literally a Ponzi scheme. It requires money to continue to come in. And watching that, there is the whole crypto aspect of it, but I wish, and I know this was never going to happen, Mike, but I wish the narrative would have been, look what reckless VC money did. Because Sam didn't get all this money on his own. His parents helped him, but a lot of investment firms, Sequoia is the biggest, most famous one, that was impressed because he was playing video games while on the call. And there's no accountability there, right? It was their hundreds of millions, actually billions of dollars that the California and New York VCs pumped into FTX.
Yeah, well, but okay, so this should be, if you're one of those people, who's really concerned about diversity, inclusion, all that stuff, I don't think the VCs knew this was a scam going in. They typecast, right? This is just like, when somebody goes, oh, we need a Scotch Irishman to be the cowboy.
Yeah, but they have due diligence they should be doing. They should be auditing
they did their
the books
due diligence
before they cut.
They heard 3 letters, MIT. That's it. He wore a hoodie, he played League of Legends, and he was from MIT.
This is the problem and why I'm a little frustrated, because without accountability for that enablement, it's just going to happen again. It is these venture funds that are looking for these 100x returns, and they will just dump money. And, again, Sam was a master of saying what you want to hear. And it's pretty easy to figure out what a VC wants to hear. What a VC wants to hear is 100x return, going to change the world, disruption.
No, what the VC wants to see is Stanford, MIT, and borderline a hoodie with something that appears to be some sort of weird social problem, like but not really a problem where it's like a medical problem, right? Like it's just
they probably love that he was hopped up on amphetamines all the time too. They probably thought that was great.
I'm sure he mentioned sleeping on a beanbag near the servers, right? Like,
it's in their videos, and dude, it's part of their branding, you know?
Trust me, I've been in these meetings. You know what they don't want to hear? I'm a parent.
You know what they don't want to hear? Sam hasn't showered for 2 days.
No, I think they kind of do want to hear that.
Maybe
they're
they do. Yeah. Actually, they're such sickos. I just wish that was more of the story. But I think people are watching this stuff in front of their eyes and making their own decisions. But I want to pivot to the Fediverse because
the
Podge Sage boosted in last week after listening to the episode with 2,112 sats, his lowest boost amount ever. So I think he's disappointed in you. He says, whoa. Why the Mastodon hate, Mike? And Brandon also wrote in via email asking, what's going on with Mastodon? Why not on Mastodon? What's going on? And I think people got the impression that you're a Mastodon hater.
So I've had a Mastodon account since 2018.
You OG.
That's not OG. That's not OG at all. I don't know how long. Is that? I don't know. And I've just started using it again because I managed in one fell swoop to piss off the lefties and the righties on Twitter. A glorious strike.
And you had both of sides coming at you. You're like just standing there
My
in the middle.
DMs had to be closed very briefly because, and I will give the lefties one thing. At least the lefties were real people. I could tell by the typos. The righties, domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. A lot of them. So just do not mess with Kara Swisher. It's all. It never works. Always backfires.
Does she have like a Kara militia?
No, I don't think it's her. I think what happens is because so many people hate her that they just attack you if you don't go all out.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, it turns out that she might have a point regarding crazy bot.
So that rough house experience where the Kara stands and the Kara haters came after you. You decided
It was mostly the haters. Well, you know what I decided? I've been missing Google Plus.
Yeah.
And I realized Mastodon is the closest thing. I know there's that post news thing. I signed up for the beta, but that's so much more work, right? Like Twitter, microblogging is where it really is. It seems to make more sense. And it's been a couple days. And you know what? It's like Alan Pope is on there. I don't have many connections on there, but it's, mostly other developers, right? iOS developers, Linux users. And it's like a conversation that's not, you're a fascist, you're a communist, you're this, you're that.
Right. It's a little more akin to, hanging out in a niche group. So everybody's kind of a little more aligned, for better or for worse. But while I think that's nice, and I enjoy being on the podcasting 2.0 Mastodon, because, there I like to talk about podcasting 2.0. I don't talk much, but I follow. But I really haven't been compelled to get on Mastodon outside of that because, A, for great in-depth technical conversations about any topic, we have the Matrix chat room with individual rooms.
We do.
And B, I think what you just touched on is going to mean, I think Mastodon sticks around. We're going to have more users. Mastodon's going to be more active than ever. But everything you just said is also why Mastodon is going to remain niche, and people will want to get back on Twitter. Because if you ever want to have a go at Kara Swisher again, well, you'll have to do it on Twitter. Or if you ever want to get a big conversation going, or, if some celebrity just dies, or there's an earthquake somewhere, or there's some breaking event, you're going to end up back on Twitter because your Mastodon community is going to be talking about Python, which is great, but they're not going to be covering an election that's going, or an earthquake, or, a volcano or whatever, right? It's like that breaking news, those moments, real life that's happening with everybody, a shared event across the world, across these niches, happens on Twitter.
Right. So, okay, before this blows up a little bit, right? I didn't necessarily go for Kara Swisher. Just pull it back a little bit.
Okay. I mean, I like the idea, though, of it. I sure do like the idea of you having a go.
If you recall, I did try that years ago. It ended badly. But I questioned her very aggressive criticism of Twitter as a space and Elon Musk's decisions in a snarky way to keep all her replies closed to only people she follows. Well, she proved her point because I had all my stuff open, and immediately when she responded, it was like I turned the DM notifications off on my phone, then went into the Twitter web browser to turn them off because I was getting hammered by insane. Like some of them thought I was her. Like the craziest I've ever seen. Like not even like Elon's, 6-inch thick doobie crazy. Crazier than that. Alex Jones crazy. So I don't know, right? And then of course you get the other side is like, you just hate her because you hate her. I'm like, I don't hate her. I've been subscribing to her stuff for 15 years, but sure, I hate her, right? Whatever you want to say. I hate that this is true, but I sort of get it. Like and I don't think that it used to be like this, or at least it wasn't for me. But I'll give you another example. I wasn't going to talk about this because it's kind of dunking, and I know you'll disagree, but TMB used to advertise on Twitter a lot, and we've been getting tons of spam, I would say, in the last month from the ads, right? Because we would advertise. It was one of those landing pages. I don't know if you're familiar with lead pages at all.
I don't think so. Is this a Twitter advertising feature?
No, it's a third party, but it can integrate with Twitter. And it basically, you put up a page, and it's like any call the salesman thing. You can schedule an appointment. Well, they've all been like weird offshore spam for a while. Now, I don't know if that's byproduct of upping the ad spend in the last 6 months, or maybe something I tweeted changed. You know what I mean? Like the algorithm could have changed the way they see the company account. But it's been weird. It's also very cheap. So there's that. So I don't know. I mean, I want Google Plus back. I'm not going to get it, right?
But you know what, Mastodon, this could be a great experiment. And I think you're right. You're going to have a more focused community, probably, hopefully less drama. There'll still be some, I'm sure, because humans.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to post a bunch of Mac stuff. It should be fun.
There you go. Marchie boosted in with 7,777 sats. He said, I'm boosting in to show some .NET love. We're a small startup.
Picked the right day.
So I'm not sure if that makes me a dark matter dev or not. That's a good question. It says our front end is React plus TypeScript SPA, and the back end is mostly .NET with a little bit of Node.js, all containerized and running on GNU/Linux, of course. And he goes on to say, Marchie says, .NET has an excellent SDK for interacting with Azure, where we run all the things. We deploy with GitHub Actions and develop in Visual Studio. So we're all on the modern Microsoft stack and loving it. We'll take that, Amazon. You know what? They really are. And it sounds like a pretty sweet workflow, guys. If you would be so kind, Marchie, I'd be curious to know how long you've been on that stack. Like, is this in the last year? Because I wonder if that would kind of underscore Mike's point, where like if you were starting recently, this would probably just be the stack you'd start with for a lot of people. Or I wonder if Marchie slowly transitioned. That'd be some interesting extra detail.
I have another question for Marchie, because I have a client who's super hot on Blazor. Did you consider Blazor?
Inquiring minds want to know. I am CGI boosted in with 300 sats. Hey, Chris and Mike, longtime listener, sent him a first boost. Well, hello.
Woohoo.
Previous episode, you talked about Pi environment and RB environment and VM. They're all great, but after using more than 3, it becomes a burden to install and use different tools. So check out ASDF VM. It's the same concept, but under one unified tool with a neat plugin system. In fact, Pi environment is used as a plugin in ASDF. Keep up the amazing shows. Well, we'll put a link to that. So it's ASDF-VM. You guys out there may have already heard of this. I'll put a link to that in our Matrix chat room too, and we'll have it in the show notes.
Nice, good stuff.
Yeah. One tool to rule them all, Mr. Dominic. Do-do-do. Hinga. I always get that wrong, but I love the boost anyways. Boosting with 3,000 sats.
Oh, I thought it was Hanaga. Huh.
Okay, I'll take that. Hanaga. Yeah. I'm doing Graphene OS, and Hanaga is doing Calyx OS on their Pixel 5. And they say they deleted their Google account years ago, and it's been working great. Guess what? So I'm past the honeymoon stage. I'm still on Graphene OS on the Pixel 7, and I checked screen time yesterday. I spent a grand total for my iPad and my iPhone, a grand total of 15 minutes on my iOS devices.
Holy shit, I think I should give you a chip or something for this. Like, this is crazy.
I did it. I'll tell you what, Waze and CarPlay in general have been rough.
So are you Google free?
So far. Yeah, I worry that I'm going to regret the Waze decision, because on an average evening, there's 3 speed traps to 6 on my drive home, and it's such a heavily sped area. Everybody speeds, so the cops are just milking it. And so I actually find Waze to be a pretty useful tool. And I'm going to feel really dumb if I get like a $200 ticket, because our tickets are outrageous here.
Well, it's 30%.
I'm going to feel really dumb if they give me a ticket and I could have stopped it with Waze, because I've actually been really lucky. Because it is so heavily trafficked with cops, ways has high network adoption. I'm trying out Magic Earth, really cool, great app. Does support like all of the traffic reporting features and more, but just lacks the network effect. So everybody go use Magic Earth for God's sake. Purple Dog writes in with 3,000 sats. My wife is doing a biochem PhD involving bioinformatics. Yeah, very impressive. Most of the tools are written in Python and haven't been touched since the corresponding paper was published up to a decade ago. It was a nightmare trying to run them for her, then to find, oh no, this one over here is based on Python too, because they never documented that. She's not a developer herself, so it left me to fix everything. Well, she's very lucky, Purple Dog. That is so frustrating. I have had a little bit of experience with that too. And it feels like if these schools wanted to teach people the modern way to do this stuff, they should package up all these requirements into a container and then publish it up on Docker Hub and then just tell students to load the container on their machine with all these, esoteric old crap that's probably riddled with security vulnerabilities. Or a VM, right? Have the students go get some free VM software and distribute it. To expect the students to reconstruct a Python environment from a decade ago, they should be paying you.
Well, they could also have this is a common thing in academia where a lot of the stuff is still Python too. The answer is they probably need to just pay some, grad student to
there you go
rewrite the stuff in Python 3. But
and God forbid you containerize it. God forbid.
No, you can't tell them Docker because then they'll start spinning up AWS instances, and Bezos will get more of that sweet, sweet open source money.
Sir Alex Gates, the podcasting Tiddo consultant, boosts in with 10,000 sad sats. I deleted my Matrix account. Dun, dun. The social paradigms of online group chats are toxic. Tech smart normies are still normies. I'm disappointed to see this because I think, the Coder Radio general chat stays pretty on topic all the time. Every now and then some Elon stuff comes up,
or MTG stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it is, let's be honest, except for during the live show. And so not only can you can choose, unlike Twitter, where it's kind of like a feed, you can choose what rooms, but, Alex, this is a great way to chat with you and stay up to date on these topics and stay in sync. And, I'm adding more people to that platform, not less. And so even if you didn't participate in the group chats, you could at least participate in the direct chat. So if you want to reconsider and you'd like a jupiterbroadcasting.com account since you deleted your matrix.org, I guess send a boost now. I don't know. I don't know how.
No way to contact you.
But let me know, and because I'd love to keep you in the Fediverse so that way we can chat. But I understand you got to do what you got to do. The Golden Dragon boosted in accidentally twice, so I'm going to credit him 4,444 sats. Of course, I can always send some back there, Dragon. He writes, "Did I agree with the newly leaked emails?" Referring to the emails we talked about last week, where Elon said the managers are expected to write a bit of code and know how to read code. The Dragon says, "I do agree. Management shouldn't be exempt from stepping in from time to time if necessary to do the job they were asked to do or lead or, hired. After all, I feel like that's part of being on a team. Plus, knowing what your folks do helps you lead them effectively, in my opinion." I'm sorry if this comes off a bit brash, but great show, gentlemen. No, I think we agree.
I don't think that's brash. Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
It's kind of funny that that's become a controversial idea. And again, I think that kind of goes back to not to be this guy, but kind of different standards. We've just had different standards emerge over the last few years. And, being able to read and write the code just wasn't one of the things that was considered important, I suppose. Maybe there'll be a change on that. Maybe there won't be. And then I don't know if I...
You have to do it. Yes.
You want me to do it? Okay.
You want me to do it? I'll do it.
No, I got it.
All right.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Go.
Sir Lurks a lot boosted, and I think it was 1,000 sats. I might have not grabbed
It's
that.
1,000.
I just loved it so much. This message. Here we go. Jingle bells, Red Hat smells, Ubuntu lost their feels. SUSE is strange to me, and Arch has lost its appeal. Oh, NixOS, it's the one for me. Silver Blue, I once tried you and your OS tree. Oh, NixOS, it's the one for me. The learning curve is steep, but it's a worthy climb, you'll see.
Bravo.
Thank you, Lurks a lot. That's a very nice holiday boost.
So next week, the free software song.
And also, probably the first and last time I'll ever sing even have thing on air. Neural LP, unless it's a lot. Maybe I should set a sat minimum.
See, now it's just a matter of the price.
Yes, right. Now we got to set a price. Neural LP also boosting with 4,000 sats. Thank you, sir. Thank you also to our members. I hope you enjoyed the Coder QA. I'm getting the word that you did. If you are a Patreon subscriber, we're going to spin down Patreon at the end of the year. So if you're on Jupiter.party or you're a Coder QA member, you're already set up. If you're on Patreon and you'd like to become a Jupiter Party member, kind of transition your network support, I have a promo code 2022 for the end of the year, and it'll take $2 off the monthly subscription for the lifetime of the subscription. So that's a pretty good savings. It really stacks up. And that's just a transition because unfortunately, I think we're done with the Patreon platform just based on some integration issues that we've had. Nothing really beyond that, but we're building some new platforms, new capabilities, creating our own RSS feeds, and so we need something a little different. So if you'd like to join us at Jupiter.party, use the promo code 2022. You can also upgrade your Coder QA membership if you'd like to get all of the shows ad-free and their special features. Jupiter.party. And Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you'd like to send the good folks this week before we get?
Yeah, follow me at Dumunuku at mastodon.social.
Oh, all right. You can find me in the Fediverse in Matrix. Let's see. How about coder.show/matrix? Go there. That's where you'll find me. Yeah? Because we got the little linkage. Send you right over there. Get you in the general room. You can hang out. We're doing live streams. Because, we do stream this thing. We do. We do it at Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern at Jupiter.tube. We'd love to have you there, too. And then you can hang out in the chat room and yak with us. Links to what we talked about today, that's at coder.show/495. You also find our contact form there. We love your emails, as well as our RSS feeds. Thanks so much for joining us. See you back here next week.